Hi everyone, Angela here. Print out the pattern at 100% letter or A4 size and check with the square for accuracy. Links for this pattern and the full tutorial are down on the left and in the description below. Assemble the pattern and cut out the pieces. For the batting, use 100% cotton Wrap and Zap. It's microwave safe and machine washable. I'll leave a link for this in the description as well. Cut 2 of piece A. Fold the pattern back along the creases, then carefully mark along the folded edges and the notches at the top and bottom. You only need to do this for the top piece. Flip the top piece over and place piece B on top, matching all the edges. Mark all the darts and the 2 notches at the side. Flip the pattern over onto the other batting piece and repeat. The notches should be on the opposite side. Press all of your cotton fabric pieces. With the pattern opened flat, cut 1 of piece A. Cut all the fabric strips to the right length and then arrange them following the diagram. Place the center strip between the lines and the notches and pin in place if you need to. Flip the other batting piece over to the blank side and place the wrong side of the fabric piece A on top. Align all the edges, press together, and flip over again. The batting kind of sticks to the fabric and stays in place. I'm using the Juki TL-2010Q sewing machine. The link for this and the tools I use are down in the description below. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, click the link for Echidna Sewing and Juki Junkies for North America. Increase the stitch length to 3 or 3.5. Use 100% cotton thread so that they'll be microwave safe. On my machine, this is the guideline for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We need to sew the strips together with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is just slightly less than the 1/4 inch. This means that the edges of the fabric will extend just past the right side of my presser foot when sewing. With right sides together, place the next strip on top of the center one with the edges even. Using a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch from end to end. There's no need to back tack, just sew a few stitches before and after the marked lines. Lift and pull the strip up and press with your fingers nice and flat. Be careful not to stretch out the batting. Repeat with the other strips in order until you get to the side of the batting. If you're finding this video helpful, make sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on all notifications, and leave a comment below. As always, I'd love to know where in the world you're watching from. You can also show your support by becoming a member. The edge of the last strip should be even with the batting. If you want, you can sew close to the edge to keep it in place. Turn it around and repeat with the other strips in the same order. I find that sewing the strips from the center out to each side gives a nicer result than sewing from one side to the other. On this side, the batting's slightly wider, but that can be trimmed later. Now rotate to the other edge and place one of the longer strips on top, right sides together, and the fabric edges aligned. Make sure the fabric edges at each end line up as well. Clip the bottom end and pin in the center. Again, using a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, stitch across, this time back tacking at the start and finish. Again, if you want, you can stitch close to the edge to hold in place. Rotate and repeat on the other side. Trim away the batting that's wider than the square, making sure not to cut away any of the fabric. For each piece, flip over to the batting side and stitch 1/4 inch from the edge, a few stitches before and after the notches. This extra step will make closing the opening later a bit easier. Turn this piece over to the right side and trim away any batting that's wider than the fabric. Keeping the layers together, fold the square in half, matching all the corners and edges. Use your finger to really push out that center fold so that the fabric doesn't pleat on the inside. To sew the dart, start about 1/4 inch below the top edge, back tack, stitch right along the line. There's no need to back tack at the end, just stitch past the fold, leaving a little tail. Leaving that top edge open will eliminate having to clip the seams later on, and as you can see, the bottom of the dart won't come apart. Repeat for the other darts. Make sure you're sewing them all the same so that the sides are all even. When you're sewing the darts for the quilted piece, try to get the end of the darts in the center of the strip. You may need to adjust the fold a bit for the 2 darts that run vertically along that center strip. I use my Kai 6-inch embroidery scissors to do all my trimming. Starting from the top, trim all the darts, leaving about a 1/4 inch seam. Use the point of the scissors to separate the batting from the fabric and trim down the center of the batting to the point. Then carefully trim away the batting close to the stitching on both sides. When trimming the darts on the quilted piece, just trim the batting from the top edge to the first quilt line. This next step is optional, but I like to open up the darts and press them all flat. It'll give it a nice, crisp finish. Flip the piece with the marks on the bottom so that it's right side up. Place the other one inside with right sides together and the marks matching at the sides. Carefully match all the edges and the dart seams, then clip all around. We'll start with a back tack here, stitch all around, back tack here, leaving an opening between the marks. Stitch all around using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, pivoting slightly at the center of the darts. At the corners, stop 1/2 inch before the edge, with the needle down, lift the foot and pivot. Continue stitching all around, pivoting at the corners and back tacking at the other mark for the opening. Using a pointy tool like a stiletto or this point turner really helps to keep the layers in place. Trim all the corners on an angle, being careful not to cut the stitching. This next step is optional. Use the point of your scissors to separate the batting from the fabric and trim the batting close to the stitching. Also cut any threads at the top of the darts. Trim around the seams and the quilt lines, then repeat on the other side. Carefully turn it right side out. I find it easiest to gather up the fabric like putting on socks, folding the seams over and pushing the corners out first. Use a knitting needle or a chopstick to push out the corners. At the opening, flatten out the seams and neatly fold in 1/2 inch on both sides. Having 1/2 inch seams and the layers sewn together makes this a little easier to do. Match the folds, then clip together. Adjust the rest of the seam so that it's right in the center. Start the top stitching at the dart. For 1/8 inch top stitch, have the edge in line with the center of the right side of the presser foot. Start with the back tack, pivot at the corners, and back tack to finish. Keep adjusting the seam as you sew, making sure it's right in the middle. This way the edges and the top stitching will look nice on both sides of this reversible bow cozy. Again, use a stiletto or a point turner to keep those edges in place. Next, we're going to sew 2 diagonal lines through all the layers, starting and stopping inside the top stitching. Start with a back tack and make sure to stitch through the inner corners. Fold the bow cozy in half and use the corner on the other end as a guide to sew straight across to the other side. Slide the corner down and stretch the fabric a bit as you're doing this. Stretching the fabric will help prevent it from pleating on the underside. Stitch through the inner corner and back tack inside the top stitching. So now you have a cute framed reversible bow cozy. You can hardly tell where the opening is, and there's no extra bulk along the edges or the darts. And what I love most is that the layers are quilted together. This bowl measures 6 inches wide and 2 inches deep and fits perfectly inside. This larger bowl is 8 inches wide and 4 inches deep and will also fit inside. I hope you enjoy making this project and use up some of your scraps. Thanks again for watching. Take care and happy sewing.